Okay, please do be seated. And we're continuing what we were speaking about last week. Don't be afraid of imaginary lions. I'm going to read the verses as they come up on the screen. It is not good to have zeal without knowledge, nor to be hasty and miss the way. We're reading from Acts. Paul and his companions travelled throughout the region of Phrygia and Galatia, having been kept by the Holy Spirit from preaching the word in the province of Asia. When they came to the border of Mysia, they tried to enter Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus would not allow them to. So they passed to Mysia and went down to Troas. During the night, Paul had a vision of a man of Macedonia standing and begging him, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." After Paul had seen the vision, we got ready at once to leave for Macedonia, concluding that God had called us to preach the gospel to them. And our next verse is the one from Proverbs that says, "The sluggard says, 'There is a lion outside, or I will be murdered in the streets.'" I just want to tell you this story that one day God went to a man's house and knocked on the door. The curtains twitched and a man looked fearfully through the window and said, "Who's there?" And God said, "It's me. I'm here. I want you to come out. I want to speak to you." The man replied, "Go away. There might be a lion outside. I'm quite safe and comfortable in here. I want to remain in here. I've heard this lion has huge teeth and claws, and the sound of its roar would terrify me. I won't open the door for anybody, not even for you, God. I'm not coming outside." So God said, "But it's me, God. Don't be afraid of a silly old imaginary lion. It only exists in your head. And even if there was one, I wouldn't let it hurt you. Now open the door. Come out and have a walk with me. I want to talk to you because I have a plan for your life. It's a great plan. I will do amazing things for you and through you. But you have to step outside. You have to trust me." The man huffed and said, "That's what the preacher at our church keeps saying. But no, thank you. I'll sing great hymns of faith with gusto when I'm in church, Lord. I'll even shout hallelujah and amen when the preacher says the just shall live by faith. But if there is a lion out there, how will my faith help me when those huge teeth and those sharp claws are rending my flesh? Now go away, Lord. I'm not going outside, but I'll see you in church next Sunday." So God gave a deep sigh, went to the house next door and knocked on the door. The curtains twitched, and a man looked fearfully through the window and asked, "Who is there?" "Go away. There might be a lion outside. I have heard it has huge teeth and claws." But God said, "It's me. Don't be afraid of an imaginary silly old lion. If there was one, I wouldn't let it hurt you. Trust me. There isn't one, so open the door, come out and have a walk with me. I want to talk to you. I have a plan for your life. It's a great plan. It's amazing. I will do incredible things through you and around you. You will see my hand at work. All you have to do is open the door, come out, walk with me and trust me." God heard a shuffling sound inside. The door opens. The man steps out and says, "Okay, God, where are we going?" That's how the Christian life should be lived. The Christian life isn't just about sitting here in church. Have you ever, when you was a little boy or a little girl, did you ever imagine what your life would be like? We all did, I'm sure, every one of us at some point when we was a little boy or a little girl. I remember when I was a little boy, I used to wonder, what will I be doing when I'm 30 years old? I mean, this month I hit the big 50, and I thought, oh, that's really old when I was young. Now I think it's really young. But, when you're a little boy, I didn't even think that far ahead. I used to think, what would my life be like? And I never imagined that God would call me to be a minister of the gospel. I just never imagined it. I thought, oh, maybe I'll be a fireman, or at one point I wanted to be a dustbin man and change my name to Norman, wasn't it? That's what 5-year-old kids are like. But I never imagined that I would travel all over the world, that I would have spoken on Christian television to people all over Europe, that I would have sat with the president of a nation and prayed with him, that I would have met and spoken with most members of the royal family, spoken to people of government, that admirals in the Royal Navy at one point would come and ask for my advice on things. That I've ministered in jungles, deserts, on mountains, in the deep snows of Antarctica, spoken in huge and grand cathedrals as well as ramshackle huts, spoken to crowds of up to 10,000 people and told them about Christ. I've had people point guns at me. I got drugged in Pakistan in a failed robbery attempt. I've not told you that story and I won't tell it now, I will one day. But I got drugged in Pakistan, but the drugs failed to work. Another story I haven't told you, I was anointed as a bishop of the church in the Philippines. I've never told you that, have I? And then I was defrocked a year later. The reason I was defrocked was because the archbishop there, there was a land deal that was happening, and one of his priests did something, and he thought I'd done it, and it wasn't. So Meldy's mother was in the church at the time when he stood there, and he denounced me as a bishop of his church. And yet I'd done nothing wrong. And yet God worked. And 2 years later there was a reconciliation, and I stood in that very pulpit where I was denounced and preached the gospel of grace again, because that was the healing power of God. I've been at sea in hurricanes where you have to strap yourself into your bunks, you're not thrown out of it when trying to sleep, and it's like sleeping on a roller coaster. Taken a church service where the communion stuff is literally bouncing on the tables because it's so rough. None of it would have happened if I had not trusted God. If I'd have stayed in a prayer meeting looking out the window and when God said, Sean, come here, come and walk me, I have a plan for your life. It's a great plan. You will see me do amazing things through you and in you in your wildest dreams that you would not imagine. Step outside, walk with me by faith. If I'd have said, Lord, there's imaginary lions out there, I might get eaten if I go out there, none of it would have happened. And the point is, it's the same for us as a church. I think God's going to do amazing things here, but we have to keep walking with him by faith. We have to step out of our comfort zones and move into the things that he calls us to. God said to Jeremiah, call to me and I will answer you and show you great and wonderful things that your mind cannot even now conceive. My entire ministry has been the result of answered prayers, result of stepping out, taking steps of faith. Never say, Lord, please talk to me, and your Bible remains closed. The Bible is the primary way that God speaks to us. People who don't read and study God's word will never know what he requires of them. They'll have false illusions of the mind, false worries and fears controlling their hearts. If it was possible to know everything was to know about God and faith, and then not to act upon it, it would be a fruitless waste of time. Why do we read in the Bibles about this God who says, I will do amazing things, and then we as Christians are scared of imaginary lions? I'm not going to try that, Lord. There's risk involved with that. Oh my goodness, something might go wrong, Lord. No, thank you. I'll stay within my nice comfort zone. We can miss God if we act like that. Don't ever say God has not answered your prayers when you refuse to act upon what he says in his word and you're too afraid to trust him. God is never inactive when we pray. He's never indifferent when we speak to him. He's always attentive whenever we bring anything to him, even our anxious thoughts. He sees, hears and answers, but sometimes the answer's within here, within the scripture. When we open it, we read it, we study it, we reflect upon it, discuss it, and so on. Because it will change your perspective on life. The Bible teaches us that life has no remote control. You have to get up and change it yourself. Sometimes we as Christians think that like God's like a remote control or like an Argos catalogue. We say, Lord, this is my order for this week of the prayers I want. I've ordered this answer, that answer. That's not how it works. Sometimes prayer actually changes us more than it moves God. It helps us see, my goodness, if I do this, Lord, you said you will do that. So emphasis is on me. If I do this, you will do that. And that's what we see in that scripture in Acts. They didn't have a divine revelation of where to go. All the apostles had was the commission of Jesus Christ, go and preach this gospel. So they went. And as they was going, circumstances, they weren't able to preach the gospel in that place. The circumstances stopped them. But as they was in the midst of going, that's when God showed them where he wanted them to be. God has a plan and a purpose for your life. God has a plan and a purpose for this church. But without faith and trust in God, imaginary lions will keep a Christian or a church within the confines of their comfort zones, where they may feel nice and secure, but they are of no use whatsoever to God. I think God is calling us as a church to do great and amazing things in Housestead and the surrounding community. We've taken the first steps, but there's still more to go. And so we shouldn't be controlled by false illusions, false fears, and false worries. Did you know that each of us has triggers that activate irrational fears? Psychological monsters that seem overpowering to us, but which probably would be no problem to someone else. Did you know I have a phobia about cows? Seriously. I have a phobia about cows, going into a field with cows. When I'm walking my dog, I overcome it. When I go to Sudbury Meadows, there's cows there, and they're okay because they ignore you, so I can walk through there. But if there's a field with cows, I won't cross it. I don't know why, it's just this phobia, and I think, I don't trust them, they look pretty dodgy. And did you know that more people are killed by cows each year than there are, I forget what the other statistic is, but a lot of people are killed by cows each year. That's my point. So, but each of us can have triggers that activate these kind of irrational fears. When it comes to walking with God, God cannot use those who do not step out in faith when he calls them to do it. He cannot use them those who allow a spirit of fear to paralyse them into inactivity. Because we as a church should not strive to be successful, but to be of value to God. To position ourselves and our hearts and minds in a place where he can use us. And God has already told us to proclaim the gospel, to bear testimony to him, to spread the message to the ends of the earth. Yet sometimes we as Christians still think we have to sit around waiting for instructions from God. The apostles weren't waiting, they acted. The book of Acts was written because they acted. You notice it's not called the book of prayer or the book of sitting around waiting for God to show us what to do. It's called the book of Acts because they acted on the great commission of what Christ had told them to do. And that's who we are to be as a church, people that act on what God tells us to do. Some people have a sentimental faith. They love hearing about or reading what God did in the past. Well, that's fantastic. I enjoy that too, but I want to see what God's doing in the present. I don't want to just read about what God did in so-and-so's life. I want to see what God does in my life, what God does in your life, what God does through us. I want people years later to look back at this time, say, look what God did then. Let's be inspired by it. Let's do now the same things, the same principles, and see God work. And sometimes it's scary. Sometimes God will put us in situations that can be very, very uncomfortable. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's really tough. Tests and trials do come. God will put us in a situation that is not pleasant. I say I've had people point a gun at me. Literally point the gun and say, you can sit down and smoke a cigar with me, if you like, or there's another alternative. And I didn't smoke, but that was a real nice cigar, I can tell you that, with that chap. And we actually had this conversation. I'll tell you the story one day. It was when we was in the Philippines, down in the south. But false fears are like weeds in your head that will twist and turn and grow wild inside of you if you don't pull them from your head. And I think that's what we learn from this message is don't be controlled by false fears. Yeah, sometimes things will happen. You'll find yourself in a field with cows and think, I don't like this. But don't allow the false fears to twist your mind into inactivity or even false worries. God will lead you in situations where all you can do is rely upon him. And don't be anxious. He is about to show you he is faithful. As I look back on my life, I've seen the faithfulness of God so many, many times. It inspires me as I think back and now when I get into situations again where I'd be tempted to drift into anxiety and worry that would cripple my heart and my mind and put me into inactivity, I remember what God has done in the past and all of a sudden I feel peace. Lord, you've got this, you've done this in the past, you will do it again. Remember this, you have to stop thinking that you will be stuck in your situation forever. When you're in a place where you feel like your heart will never heal, where you feel that you'll never get out of the current struggle you're in, don't confuse a season for a lifetime. Sometimes God puts us through seasons where we travel through them, but life will change. Things will work out. The lion's not there, it won't eat you, so go outside, because it's brilliant and sunny out there when you step out of a dark room full of fear into a life of faith and light and trust in God. Most times when God is not changing your circumstances, that's one of the silliest prayers we often pray. Lord, change my circumstances. I don't like this situation. I don't like that situation. Actually, God sometimes puts us in those seasons because he's more concerned with changing you in your circumstances. How we'll react to it, how we go through that season. That he wants to build our character, he wants to build inner strength, he wants to build our integrity, our ability to forgive and overcome. He wants to build into us everlasting qualities of wisdom, strength and maturity when we persevere and do not seek an escape route out of every situation. But remember, every trial has an expiration date. I had a bit of a sore stomach this week because I ate a hot dog, which I didn't realise was a week out of date. Some things have an expiration date, don't they? It's the same with our trials. That God says, this is not your permanent situation. This is just a season you will go through, and he will build character into us. Noah waited 120 years before the predicted rains came. Abraham waited 25 years for the promised son. Joseph waited 14 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Think about that, 14 years in prison, knowing you're innocent, knowing that God has called you like Joseph did. The call of God was upon his life. What must have gone through his mind and his head and his heart? Where is God? Why am I in this situation? Why have you put me through this? All these questions. He had to wait 14 years before God delivered him. Job waited 60 to 70 years for God's justice. God prepares his people in a slow cooker, not in a microwave oven. We want everything in a microwave, don't we, if we go through tough times. I want it to last 60 seconds, Lord. As soon as the ding goes, we pop out. I'm ready now to do what you call me to do, Lord. It doesn't work like that. God matures us over time. He corrects our perspective. He broadens our understanding. He widens our knowledge. He tests our faith to determine if we're ready to advance to the next level, to see if we'll seize the opportunities that come one way our way, or whether we'll be like the sluggard who says, well, I'm not doing that, Lord, just in case there's a lion out there. If you ask him, God will give you a sense of what he is up to in your life. He will give you glimpses of the breakthroughs that are just up ahead, but in return, he would expect you to trust him with the things you cannot see with your eyes. When he says, step outside, there's no lion out here, walk with me. He expects us to open the door, take his hand, and walk with him by faith. Shift the weight of your future away from your own logical reasoning and onto the weightiness of his own powerful promises that are here in the pages of the Bible. 365 times in the Bible it says, do not fear, but trust me. That's one for every single day of the year. I promise you could say where God says, don't be afraid, trust me. There's always a purpose for your pain because the truth is that God is in firm control. The truth is that we are as safe as we ever can be if we entrust our lives and our futures to him, because even death cannot kill us permanently. He's even beaten that. Even the grave Christ has overcome through his death and resurrection. He is perfectly good and loving and has our best interests at heart, the Bible says. It says he is with us, he is present with us, he is behind the wheel and in control. That he will remain actively involved because he loves us more than he will ever know. It tells us if we ask him, he will lead us. If we seek him, he will guide us. That he is work, but we have to change our perspective and trust him. It was Plato who said, those who are able to see beyond the shadows of the culture will never be understood, let alone believed by the masses. And the same is true of church culture. The mind of the spiritual person who sees beyond the religion, beyond the structures, and sees God at work will rarely be understood by those who walk and live by the religious carnal mind. Those who think it's all about religion, rather than seeing it's actually a walk with God. God assigns some people mountains to show others that they can be moved. And sometimes we don't know how strong we are until being strong is the only option we have, and we literally have to rely upon God. So I close with this. Let go of what was and surrender to what is. Have faith in what will be. You're not going crazy when you're walking through a dark valley and God's saying, trust me. There's no imaginary lions out there. The only thing you need to be scared of are cows, trust me. But don't be afraid of imaginary lions. Let us pray. Lord, deliver us from false illusions, from false fears and false worries. Yes, Lord, we do have problems. We do have trials. We do have tests. And we can confront them, Lord, when they are realities in our life that need to be faced. But Lord, help our imaginations not to create imaginary lions, to fear the worst, to torment ourselves with anxious thoughts. Help us, Lord, to trust you. Help us, Lord, when we open the Bible to see that you love us with an everlasting love, that you see the plans you have for us and they are good, to bless us, not to harm us. Help us, Lord, to know that all of our days are ordained by you, even before we were born into this world. You knew us, Lord, in our mother's womb. Lord, help us to trust you as we walk with you each day and dispel imaginary fears, false worries, and deceptive illusions, that we may walk in simple trust and faith with you. In the name of Christ. Amen.